Hey everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from What Culture, roping in Scott Telford from What Culture Gaming because we've had a big old Alien day. Alien Romulus is in theaters right now, and we went to see it at the big old Odeon at the Metro Center in Gateshead and had a very interesting time.
Pristine time.
We're going to be doing a full spoiler review here, so if you haven't seen the film and you want to go in blind and not have anything ruined for you, then you'll want to turn away and then scoot your ass back here once you've seen it, because there's lots of interesting talking points from the film, which you'll know if you have watched it. So this is your warning. I can't really do an alien spaceship alert noise to get people to go away.
Yes.
But if you're still around, yeah, Alien Romulus, the new movie from Fede Alvarez, director of the 2013 Evil Dead movie, and also Don't Breathe. He was involved in the really bad Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, legacy sequel from the other year. And he's done a new Alien movie right now. And going into this, Scott had lots of videos on What Culture kind of talking about our excitement for the film and also some anxieties because, I don't know about you, I was a little bit concerned about this thing moving into that kind of legacy sequel trope that we've had a lot of over the years, especially with stuff at Disney. And as a fan of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I'm also a little bit bitter that we're not wrapping up the Ridley Scott stuff. But overall...
Or are we?
But this is where we're going to diverge here. Overall, I really liked it.
Yes.
But all my fears came true, and I do think this is an Alien movie that would have been better if it wasn't made by a huge nerd. What I mean by that is, if someone wasn't so beholden to the franchise in that kind of Star Wars-y way, we would have gotten past some of those obvious legacy sequel tropes, which we get a lot of here, and allowed the really cool, gnarly set pieces to breathe more, lean more into the metaphor and the existential dread that we love the original films for. Otherwise, I think it gets drawn back a little bit. But overall, your thoughts? You loved it.
I loved it, man. I think there are two specific things that I hate, and we are in full spoiler territory. One, the inclusion of Rook at all. However, his introduction scene is horrible. It looks like a Corridor Crew deepfake, and not one of the good ones.
Obviously based on Ash from the original Alien.
Yeah. Like, bringing that character back and making it the exact same one, it's not just a model of the same run of Android or whatever. I feel like the way that was done felt like a studio insert. Like, we need to have some sort of huge callback to the original movie and spell out what the xenomorph is, what it can do, it has acid for blood, etc. I thought that scene was horrible, and there is a get away from her UB word as well in there later on, which is just horribly done. Other than that, I absolutely loved it, and I agree with you that a lot of my fears came true in regards to going into this. Now, we talked about this a couple of times on the What Culture Gaming podcast, which please go subscribe to, about how this might be, I thought it was going to be the Force Awakens of the Alien franchise, because you have Prometheus 2012, Alien Covenant 2017, and then the IP has kind of just been all over the place, for the last 10, 15 years. Ridley Scott trying to do these wider conversations and talking points, philosophical stuff on the nature of evolution, the nature of discovery,
which
or whatever,
I love.
Which a lot of people love. I love the ambition of both those previous movies, but I didn't think they nailed anything. It didn't make me think or whatever. Not that this does either, but I think it's interesting now in 2024, you give the IP to someone like Fede Alvarez, who is then making a sequel to everything. And I absolutely loved it. There's a lot of specific stuff that I adored, especially the human alien, but we'll get there towards the end of the movie. But to me, it's almost like an impossible task. Like, you're trying to do an alien movie, which is like a standard slasher type setup in the modern day, arguably, and then you also have the wider philosophical stuff, or at least what it was going towards in terms of the black goo and Prometheus and whatever. I thought Alvarez did as best as he could, and I loved the set pieces, underwater facehuggers, that room temperature bit. That was all sick, and it's also shot so beautifully. I have tons to talk about. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, no, I think my issue with it is that Fede Alvarez is a filmmaker. He's played a lot within franchises that are from the 80s, and for me, this is kind of going back into that fanboy territory of, I loved Alien and Aliens, so I'm going to draw your mind back to those two spaces because I don't necessarily have a unique into the franchise. And the thing that, Romulus really dives into on a subtextual level is pulling from the same stuff that we saw in Alien and Aliens, and of course in Prometheus and Covenant, the idea, and Alien 3 too, which I actually think is better than a lot of other people think, going into that idea of untapped, unmitigated capitalist materialistic greed kind of, you know, paving over our bodies and causing one's own destruction. It kind of just writes that subtext in big neon signs, which is fine. You know, it's pretty obvious in those movies as well. But I think what I was hoping for and what I want from new Alien films is a greater degree of unique authorial intent behind them, which again, you mentioned Alien as an IP there and a franchise. Of course it is, but I don't think it was ever really meant to be overall.
That's what's fascinating.
Which is kind of, in terms of stuff that I loved, I absolutely adore the new cast. I think the cast really, really carries me, especially Kaylee Spaney and the fellow who plays Andy the android.
Andrew Royd.
I loved their relationship in this movie.
Yes.
The whole element of Andy kind of being both her brother and her father's element there. You know, he's programmed with all the different dad jokes. That's a really good emotional core to the movie. And especially, you know, looking at the idea of, like, you know, value in life and how that kind of correlates throughout the film. I really, really loved their relationship. And I think that Andy the android gets some amazing moments to pull off in this film.
Yes.
He ruins one of them by doing a little Star Wars, I have a bad feeling about this callback to Aliens.
He's
by
the
saying,
offender of
get
doing
away from her.
the line.
Yeah. But overall, really, really cool. I love their relationship. I love the tension between the cast as well. Also a great movie why you shouldn't trust British people in space because they're just gonna mess it up for you.
We suck in space, and we should talk about the wider IP franchisey side of it because obviously it has been a good long time since the original Alien. Like you said, it's not like Ridley Scott sat down and planned the whole thing out. Like even Aliens is what's his chops who directed
Jim
it?
Cameron.
Yes,
he walked onto the whiteboard and wrote down aliens and then put a dollar sign between the S to make it big.
Which, to be fair, isn't that far off from the general mandate we've got today, trying to do more of these movies. But to me, you have so much time traveled since the original one in terms of, you know, entertainment history or different things that Alien has then been the impetus behind or the inspiration behind. And I ended up writing down in some of my notes that this was like a course correction. I mentioned Force Awakens before. And obviously time was, the way that all played out was horrible in regards to the new Star Wars trilogy and the consistency, at least, that was not there. But in terms of Alien, I mentioned, you know, the two release dates of the Prometheus and Covenant, because I do think it's interesting where the average Alien fan comes down. Like, you have some people who love Prometheus and Covenant, what they were going for, and then other people who go, maybe there was more you could have done with the original series of movies, especially Alien and Aliens. Because, yeah, I don't hate Alien 3 anywhere near as much as the others either. I don't even necessarily hate Alien Resurrection.
I like Alien Resurrection as well. Everyone in the comments is like, you wouldn't like Alien Resurrection? And I'm just like, you tell me that you don't enjoy Ron Perlman in an Alien movie or Sigourney Weaver doing the little one-net basket thing in one take. That's
I think
great.
They've struggled a lot. Even back then, you could see them struggling to be like, how do we do one more of these? Because whether that's a studio mandate or someone else wants to have a go with the franchise or whatever. But where we are now, you arguably need a more straightforward Alien movie along like the weird mesh of business interests and creative interests. And someone like Fede Alvarez, I think, like I mentioned before, walks that line in a really interesting way. To me, you can see the studio inserts and the studio notes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that first Rook scene. But I still feel like he does enough cool set piece stuff.
I just feel like that's kind of in his DNA as a franchise filmmaker. And again, like, I think on a technical level, Fede Alvarez is great. There are some really gnarly, brilliant sequences to this movie, and I think it works at its best when it's leaning into the what fun stuff can we do with the xenomorph, what fun stuff can we do with the facehuggers. Let's really get creative and show the different life cycles that we've got going on here, especially the bit where we see the transition from the chest burster into the xenomorph on the ship, which involves probably my favorite death in the movie. That one is super, super gnarly. Yes. But overall, I do kind of think that he comes from that franchise space of, I'm going to just do the safe stuff and approach it from a fan, which is what, after many years of Star Wars sequels, and obviously Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny the other year, that's kind of the stuff I want less of. And there is an inevitability to getting more Alien franchises. This is the nature of Disney. It's the nature of movies in general, especially one that has been as successful and has as great as longevity as Alien. But I do... I don't know, like, I liked it a lot. This is strange. I'm criticizing the film quite a fair bit, even though I enjoyed it. But I'm so conscious of the fact that, you know, there were these cool, maybe divisive movies that kind of really swung for the fences and were very clearly, you know, the franchise's original author's intent. And instead we now have this thing where we're dipping into that space and coming at it with that degree of reverence that, you know, I feel can sometimes inhibit a more potent adaptation of a source.
This is a really good segue into the fact that they do address, finally, if you've been waiting for the answer since 2012, what the black goo is. That was a whole big talking point across Prometheus, across Alien Covenant. Like, obviously, they showed different effects of the goo, different scenes, what the engineers do in both those movies, but they specifically spell it out here. Rook specifically says that it is a component that was harvested from the facehuggers. It's ostensibly just the idea of evolution as a component. Like, you put it into something, and it accelerates time, it accelerates evolution, and we see I think it's a rat or a rabbit or something,
A rat, yeah.
evolve to the point, or explode to the point of becoming like a half-engineer creature thing, and we put the component into a pregnant woman as well, which results in the final human alien that we'll get back to. However, I do think that that's an interesting footnote, because Prometheus itself had a lot of cancelled scenes. Alien Covenant started as something else entirely, and then became Alien Covenant. And I always wondered, like, what was Ridley Scott building to? What did he want to say? If it was a potential trilogy, that idea of humanity's want to get lost in trying to talk to God or find God or whatever. Obviously, you can see it in the likes of Blade Runner as well. And obviously, in Blade Runner, it becomes the eye-gouging thing. And I think that's interesting in terms of a textual element, or thematic element, sorry, of the Alien franchise. There was enough of that here in the most casual way possible, of bringing that back in and going, okay, what does it look like when we can access infinite time? It mutates and it becomes this horrible thing.
My thing with it is that it's not going into that existential dread of it all, though, whereas with Covenant and Prometheus, you've got Ridley Scott kind of, looking to the stars and asking, well, if you want the answers, they might not be what you like.
Yes.
They might be terrifying. They might make you feel uncomfortable. With this, it's more going into the boring kind of, so what did the black goo mean literally kind of aspect to it, which I don't really care. I don't need to know specifics. I just like the idea of the kind of the metaphor and looking into space and getting really nervous.
Right.
Whereas with this, it's very much leading into the kind of the more obvious, like I said before, metatextual elements of the first two movies, looking at kind of unmitigated greed. And that, to me, gives me my favorite visual in the film, which is bound to be the most divisive aspect of it as well, which is the alien-human hybrid that we get at the very end. This is like, if we're looking at the idea of, worker exploitation, people being destroyed by corporations, having their lives torn apart to satisfy the good of the company, and the company thanks you for your service and that sort of thing, then a monstrous alien hybrid evolutionary worker that only exists to, do whatever and is a complete monster. I think that's a great visual kind of distillation of that aspect of the franchise. And again, I feel like it's fine to play within that space and just do that. I just want a little bit more. But at the same time, I love Alien Human Man. I think he's I think he's scary.
I think it's very effective. I think there'll be a lot. I think that the final third, and especially that visual, might be the thing that a lot of people either really love or really don't like. However, to me, there's always been versions of that in alien history. Like Alien 3, there was the dog alien, Alien Resurrection. There was that other sort of human alien hybrid thing. I thought it was done better here, and you can argue that maybe its design is a little bit generic in terms of just doing a hyper elongated creature, something like what we saw in Signs or whatever.
Species almost.
Yeah, like a different species. However, I felt like you were watching Fede Alvarez have a lot of fun in that final third. Like, the shackles were off in regards to delivering the safe portion of the Alien sequel, and we can just have fun with this cool new idea.
But the thing that pulls me back, the thing that pulls me back is the fact that within that space, we're still mimicking scenes from the first two movies. I think there are some great set pieces. There are some great set pieces in Romulus. There's a particular moment with a pulse rifle, which I really, really loved, involving zero gravity. You mentioned the facehugger moment earlier on when they have to raise the temperature of the room to get past them. All of that stuff is really unique and fresh. However, Alvarez can't help himself but to call back to the original. The finale is literally riffing on the original Alien in terms of, there's still an entity on board the escape vessel, and the lead actor is in their underwear and pajamas and then has to go deal with them, and then gets into a spaceship. And there's an ejection sequence and stuff. All of that, to me, is where I get most frustrated, because I feel like you're going, and especially when you've kissed the sky already with those great set piece moments, why bring it back to something we've already seen? I'm not getting any satisfaction from watching you riff on an objectively better movie.
It's also, it is worth saying that this is, because there are various beats in here that, like I said, are like Force Awakens. Like, you have a whole bit at the start where Reyes is being denied her travel by a character that's behind a screen. It's just like the bit with Unkar Plutt and Rey at the start of Force Awakens. Like, it's pretty much the same kind of scene. And you do have things like that where at the end, it's both the end of Alien and the end of Aliens. Like, you have the bit with the suit, which is the end of Alien. You have
got the cargo element as well.
Yeah, it goes back down, has to do the thing. It does lead, like you said, to that really cool anti-gravity sequence where we get to see a ton of alien blood just suspended in like a weird acid tornado, which I love that stuff. But it is, you can almost feel the studio creep of like, don't get too carried away. We need to hit some of these notes and remind people of why they love the franchise in the first place. I do think, in a wider sense, and maybe I'll do a separate video on this or something, that Alien is the next Star Wars in regards to how Disney view it. And I think, to me, you can feel a lot of that studio mandated stuff of like, let's get a really creative, visionary person in here, but we also give them a series of notes to hit.
But I think that's what Alvarez is all about.
Maybe.
I think he is just an Alien fan, and when you're a fan of something within that space, your natural compulsion is to reach for the comfort food, which is what has happened with Star Wars so much over the last, 10 odd years, except for when Tony Gilroy, who isn't a fan of the franchise, comes in and makes something unique and fierce with Andor. That is my whole thing. I don't know the level of incursion that Disney would have had with this thing overall. Obviously, it was originally meant to be on Hulu, and then it got moved to actually have a theatrical release. Hopefully because they saw how everyone got mad about Prey only being on Disney Plus, when that needed to be in the theaters as well. So I don't know. It's impossible for us to tell like where the influence stops and ends. But for me, this is very much part and parcel for Alvarez's career so far. It's good. It's enjoyable on a technical level. I enjoy how much fun he has with the sandbox. I just wish he introduced some new toys beyond, just some of the. I mean, there are new toys in there.
Yeah,
and I like some of the new toys. But I just think overall, if it leaned back from the fan service and kind of aimed more towards the stars, it would have been better.
It is, overall, it's a lot of that standard, what has become the standard legacy approach of new, youthful cast, vibrancy, and a lot of energy gets lost in a series of either the nomenclature of the original run or the iconography, the set design, whatever it is, and they play around in that space. It's the Force Awakens model, but it's also what Ghostbusters did, and what Jurassic Park/World did, and I think here it's done with more conviction and passion, and I think there's so much really cool execution on the set design side, the music side, the pacing side, whatever, that I absolutely loved it. But it's still very safe. It's just that it sucks that the bar is so low overall that you can't say it's phenomenal. It's more in that context. At least to me, it's phenomenal. But me and Ewan largely agree, going like, yep, our fears came true, except that I came out going, I had a lot of fun with that.
No, I really liked it too. I really enjoyed it. I think if you're a fan of Alien, obviously you're going to have a great time with it. I think it's a great horror movie. I think it's really technically well done. The practical effects are fantastic. Yeah. I think the love and affection for the franchise carries it so far, but to a point when it starts to get obnoxious.
Yes.
And I think overall a movie can't just live and die based on how much the director loves the franchise. I think there needs to be a bigger thrust behind it. But overall, cast are amazing. Absolutely enjoyed that aspect to it. Just on a narrative level, there isn't much fresh stuff going in. Except for the alien-human hybrid, which I love. So overall, I liked it. You loved it.
Yep.
If you've seen Alien Romulus, let us know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Is it now in your top 5 Alien movies? Or were you a little bit more negative on it? I'm really curious to hear everyone's thoughts on this because I'm sure it's going to be divisive. But whatever the case, thank you all for watching. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to What Culture for more fresh news, lists, reviews, stuff coming to your inbox every single week. Either way, I've been Ewan. This was Andy Royd.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.